Chairman. So we're hosting this to get legislators and constituents together and hear what's going on at the legislature. Kind of curious about how many people in here are actually from Kuna. All right, and how many are from Meridian? So kind of an even split. And for those of you on Zoom, I am going to do a quick test and make sure you can hear. Is this working out okay? The internet just died, so they're all...
Kuna needs more broadband.
Yeah, the ones from Kuna should have come in person. We'll get that back, sorry about that. But anyway, I do want to thank Jim Grigg and the Kuna Counseling Center. This is a really generous use of their facilities. And I want to thank the District 22 Republican volunteers and all the other volunteers that have shown up. This is a moderated town hall, so if you have any questions, fill out the cards that were given to you. If you don't have a card, just raise your hand, and one of the volunteers will come and give you one, or pick yours up. We have people online on Zoom who will not otherwise be able to hear the questions from the audience. And for those on Zoom, when we get them back, can you remind them? Do you have any way of typing that into Zoom afterwards? Okay, great. Anyway, so just the loose agenda. We're going to hear from our legislators. We've got Senator Lori Den Hartog, Representative Jason Monks, and Representative John Van der Woude. It is John Van der Woude, right? I think it was 2 years before I figured that out. He never corrected me until I asked. And he said, no, you've been mispronouncing my name wrong the whole time. So John Van der Woude. We do want to hear from them about some of their committee assignments, legislation they're working on, bills working their way through the legislature, and questions are going to be asked at the end. So if you guys want to introduce yourself, give a couple of minutes of who you are and what you're doing, and then dive right in. You want to start here? Representative Van der Woude. Okay, there you go.
I'm Representative John Van der Woude. I'm in the legislature. I serve in the Health and Welfare, and then on the Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee and the Resources Committee. So this year, Health and Welfare has been a whole different ballgame. It's almost like I don't have a morning committee, because the chairman is not interested in hearing a lot of bills unless it's absolutely necessary. So a lot of the bills that I've kind of signed on are started in the Senate instead, and you wait for them to come to the House. So there are some bills that are coming that will deal with the CAT fund and the contingency fund. If all of you remember, when we passed Medicaid expansion, we were told that that's an echo.
All right.
I can almost hear myself talk. But anyhow, so when that passed, the information out there was that the CAT fund would no longer be needed and that would go away. Well, this year we got a bill for the CAT fund for $19 million. Even though we expanded Medicaid. So what we're having is people going to the hospital, getting the state to pay their bill when they actually qualify for Medicaid or qualify for the insurance exchange. So this bill is going to tighten down the qualifications on that aspect, should save the state about $10 million, and the state is transferring control over our favorite people, Central District Health and Southwest. That control is going to go back to the county if that bill passes. So that bill is going to get introduced tomorrow, and hopefully that'll pass, but it will save the state a lot of money. But it's tightening down the eligibility as far as who can qualify for the CAT fund and the contingency fund, and make sure that the people are actually going to where they should. It's easier sometimes for the hospitals to bill the state than it is to go through Medicaid. And so they're just going right to the state, and the state's, for some reason, picking up the tab. And so that's one of the bills I'm working on now. There's also a bill on control of the Director of Health and Welfare as to when he can issue isolation order, or when he can do a quarantine, and what the definitions are of isolation and quarantine. I think those are key issues that we all came into the legislature with, and we're finally getting to where we're starting to address those issues and clear some of that up and get definitions and get some sideboards on that. So those are kind of the two main things I'm dealing with in health and welfare. We're still all waiting for property tax relief, and so am I. And hopefully we'll get some type of tax relief. We'll see where that goes at this point. So with that, I'll sit down and let my good seatmate continue.
Thanks, John. Jason Monks is my name. I have some committee assignments on state affairs. Also have transportation and defense, ways and means. This year, I'm also the assistant majority leader in the House. Right now, I say right now because that's always subject to change. And we don't do a very good job. They move us along. As far as big issues there, this year, I think one of the big priorities we had coming in was to look at the state's response to the COVID crisis and such that we had. That was kind of where we started off. I've been working diligently on that. House Bill 1, very first bill of the session, was one that I would like, I mean, I put it forth, but it was really a collaborative effort by a lot of people, so I don't want to take too much credit for that, although I'd like to take as much as I can for it. We've had a lot of reiterations of that bill, just learning more about how the process works and taking input. It turned into House Bill 16, turned into House Bill 98, turned into House Bill 135. So House Bill 135 is what we finally landed on. We sent that over. It's sitting on the Senate side, waiting for hearings over there. And that's a pretty big bill, pretty important bill in my world, at least. And you can disagree with what it does, but we had some priorities in that bill. One thing we learned during our response, the state's response to COVID, we always look at, everybody looks at the governor as far as him being the one who responded to the COVID crisis, and therefore, we need to address issues with the governor. And there's a truth to that too, but it's not the only issues that are people who have the ability to respond to the crisis. The Director of Health and Welfare had a lot of authority. That's what John was talking about. So does the Central Health District or the health departments. They have huge authorities as well. And cities also have a lot of authority. Currently, we only have 3 mandates that I'm aware of in the entire state, and that's in the city of Boise, Cascade, and Sun Valley, I think, and I may be off a little bit on those, but those are the only ones with any kind of mandates right now. They have mask mandates. Nowhere else in the state is there any mandates, none. All that we have is some recommendations still from the Central Health District, from the Department of Health and Welfare. There's recommendations, no other actual mandates. But when we got here this session, we said, there's certain things that we felt were important that we wanted to address. One of those things is that everybody's job's essential. This idea that we have classifications of jobs, that your job's essential and your job's not. If we both put food on the table, I think that's a pretty essential job. And that's important in our world. And so that's part of what House Bill 35 did. Also said that you can't change laws. You can change rules, but you can't change laws. That was something that happened during the response. We actually had election laws that were changed without the legislators' oversight. Just changed by the governor. We didn't feel that was appropriate. That's the legislature's prerogative. We need to be in charge of that. We also put, are in the process of putting limits on how much can be spent when we're not there. That's another part of the bills. And then we also try to protect those constitutional rights. In my opinion, your constitutional rights do not go away just because an emergency is declared. In fact, I think that's the most important time to protect our constitutional rights. Not, when things are going good, nobody really is up in arms. But when we have a declared emergency or crisis, I think that's when the most important time is for us to look at our constitutional rights and make sure those are protected. Those are all in House Bill 135 that we're trying to get through. But it doesn't address everything. As John mentioned, there's Department of Health and Welfare, and there's Central Health District and cities and counties. Those all have pieces and parts that we're looking to make sure that they all work in conjunction together. And so we're working forward with that. I know it will come up, so I'll just briefly touch on big packages that are coming up this year. Also is transportation. We'll let our senator talk about that, and then tax relief. There's been several different proposals as far as tax relief on how that's going to work. We've got excess money this year that we're trying to get back, and we're just trying to figure out what's the best way. And so far, I've heard of at least 3 or 4 different proposals and try to how to make that happen. And I can tell you how we got the money and how it all works, and that's a very long conversation. I'll be happy to answer that if that's something that comes up, but I don't want to take too much time on an introduction. I'd rather give you guys more chance to ask questions. So with that, I'll be quiet and turn it over to Lori.
Sit under water.
when that cap was on.
Yeah.
Did you get that on the?
Too bad.
You guys
We
don't
shared
need to
that.
read that.
Make sure you share that.
Post on Facebook.
I know, that's all that's gonna come out of this whole meeting.
That's right.
Jason sitting on
I can just
Hey,
sit
Lori,
down.
Lori,
You know we're gonna
pause
make
one
that
minute,
viral.
our feed, we've lost the feed, so let him, see if he can fix it real quick.
We're trying to get it back.
We did not get to sit on water balls.
Did Jason
Before or
break
after
the
I did
feed?
this?
or-
Would you like water?
You're good. I'm not by myself.
I'll go grab you a water bottle.
Is it the Wi-Fi in here?
Do you need a hotspot?
Hotspots to the rescue.
Water break.
Sorry.
Jason, we didn't get out of videos, we gotta do that again.
Anyone?
Oh, yes, yes.
I'm not gonna set mine on.
Anyone else? Free water.
We got one. One for her. Yeah, one for her.
Look up the information.
There you go.
Thank you.
You bet, you bet.
Jason, you know that's gonna be on channel 7, right? Tomorrow?
Yes,
Okay.
all the things I've done this year.
Just kidding.
If that's all they put on the news.
I know. I'll take that.
Where do you want me to open this?
Mine's on the floor there. By her.
Good job, Sarah.
All right, are we set up?
I might get all these texts on my brain.
All right, sorry guys, just a few more minutes with a technical problem, hopefully seconds.